Talk a little bit about what you see as the power of podcast guesting and hosting, and why you've kind of made this your mission and your cornerstone for your business.
Yeah, I mean, to give a little context, like how to get into this. So I was a partner and doing sales and marketing for a physical product called Fire Creek Snacks. So literally a meat stick. And we had to do a lot of sampling, as you might imagine. It's like, why is this meat stick better than Slim Jim or Chomps or whatever? And so we did a lot of physical in-person appearances. And then, COVID happened. That was all shut down. And so I was like, how am I going to market without leaving my house for something that's so sampling oriented, right? This is different than coaching or something. And so I got on my first podcast, and it was extremely powerful. So I'm selling meat sticks to strangers on the internet, and I was actually on a business show doing it. So like, doesn't really fit like as far as like a strategy, but it worked because people were really into the story. So what that taught me immediately, the first story that we told was how we took a local product and we brought it online. And that was very timely at the time of COVID, right? And then as that evolved, there were other stories, and they're all true stories. They're just different stories for different contexts, which again, I just don't think AI can replicate. And so one of the stories is like my co-founder in that company, he's a third generation butcher shop owner, family meat man, sort of like this nostalgic thing. And I was telling his story in a sense. And then there was a revelation that we had actually grown up in the same hometown, like a 7,000 person town in the middle of Illinois, a farm town, and that we'd never met each other because I moved away. I was a couple years older than him. I moved away before we got to high school. But what was really cool is like one day, and this is a true story that I realized after I started podcasting and I started to tell this story and it really resonated with people. We realized at some point that my grandfather, who was in the American Legion, color guard, served in World War II, and his grandfather were both in the same American Legion on the same color guard and did like funerals and things together. And he used to talk about, oh, Bill Hansen. And my grandpa did. And he's like, oh, Bernie. And one day it was like, because they're both passed away. One day it's like, wait, your grandpa's him and my grandpa's him. And like we had both heard about each other's grandpas. And that here we are with a company, on the internet doing this crazy stuff. And so I tell a more elaborate version of that story. And people would buy and they would tell us, the meat stick's awesome. I just loved your story. And like, how cool is it that your grandpa served in World War II together? And again, like facts and figures are good, but like these stories are what people remember because it makes them feel an emotion. In this case, like nostalgia and like family and things like that. So anyway, that's how I got into this whole world. I started to realize the power of storytelling, grew that brand to 7 figures. And then when people started noticing that and they're like, wow, this is different. Like this is a different kind of marketing. How can you help me with this? That's when this whole 7-figure leap thing started as a coaching endeavor. And then of course I've used podcast guesting to teach and to, share the power of storytelling in a deeper way. So anyway, I think the original question was like, why podcast guesting? So that's how I got into it.
Yeah.
And I started off thinking and teaching the mechanics, which we still do. Like, how do you find the right show? Like, what's your message? How do you find the right show? How do you pitch the show? How do you do a good interview? And that's about a third of what we teach in our main program. But about 2/3 is like, okay, what do you do with it? Right? Like to drive results for your business. And most of that is relationships. And so it is like, how do I develop a relationship with the host and make sure they respect me, I respect them, they become a referral partner and build a flywheel around that? How do I develop a relationship with the other guest experts that are on this show, right? How do I, of course, repurpose the content as you're getting at? Like, how do I use this as my marketing and then go grow my LinkedIn, my YouTube, whatever platform of choice that you have, and have the fuel for all these like relationship building and content repurposing and authority building activities be me talking and telling my story, because the people I like to work with have a great story and they're very good teachers. They just don't like want to do the nuts and bolts of day-to-day, the grind of digital marketing as we used to know it with SEO and social media and all that. So I feel like podcasting and podcast guesting are, I don't know, easy, free, fun ways to build relationships and create a ton of marketing material that's true to you and your story if you do it right. And that's really what we focus on, is like, let's make this as easy and as simple and as effective as possible and give people that ultimate shortcut so they're not dabbling around with it and taking 3.5 years like I did to kind of figure it all out. So
yeah, I 100% agree with all that. And I would highlight 2 things. One is the relationship works both ways. The reason I love podcast hosting is because I'm going to meet 52 people that are doing something similar or tangential to what I do. I'm going to build a relationship with them and get to know them and their story for 30 minutes. And I'm going to get to celebrate them, highlight, post on their behalf, share to my audience, introduce them to cool people. And then hopefully they do the same.
Yep.